We've got an amazing rematch. The Detroit Lions are taking on the Dallas Cowboys after a very controversial game last year. The Lions get a rematch to maybe become victorious over the Dallas Cowboys, who are coming off a great Sunday night football victory against the Pittsburgh Steelers. My name's Tyler, here with my brother Ryan, and we're going to break down the Lions Cowboys Week 6 matchup here. We're going to talk about the matchups within the game that you got to look out for. At the very end of the video, provide our predictions on who we think is going to win and why. But before we get into that, we're trying to get to 100 new subscribers for the Week 6 prediction video series here. We've been able to hit that goal over the past couple of weeks thanks to all of our new members. So thank you to everybody. If you haven't already, if this is your first time here, go ahead and subscribe to the Tracy Take. Leave a like and a comment. Let us know who you think is going to win this amazing game and why. And so, Ryan, that's what I was looking at this. Just some of the stats from last year's game. It's always fun now, too, watching all the Lions home games as well. Whenever Dan Skipper gets called in as an eligible receiver, everybody starts cheering in the stands. And so it's kind of a fun reminder of how much of a fun game that was last year. I think this game is going to be no different. Cowboys were able to pull out a victory after almost shooting themselves in the foot 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times, it felt like, against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And at the same time, then, too, as well, they were able to find a little bit of something as well in the rushing game against a solid Pittsburgh Steelers defense. So kind of want to throw it over to you here. Lions are coming off a bye. What is kind of your overall thoughts on Lions season so far through 4 weeks? And do you think the Cowboys are also starting to kind of make the improvements that they need to make to be like NFC champ contenders?
Yeah. Well, first off, I want to start off by saying if you're not a Cowboys fan, you are 99% of people are rooting for the Lions in this matchup after what occurred in last year's game.
Well, I think you can say that just in general, probably. I think there's like a running joke of Cowboys fans.
well, true, but it was a very poor performance by the referees in last year's game, and I think everybody wants this one to be righted, me included. And so I looking at just the seasons, the Lions coming off a bye after a pretty dominant win against the Seattle Seahawks on, I believe, Monday Night Football, and this offense looked really good. This defense is clicking. The thing that's really scary is last year this offense was one of the most efficient in the NFL. They had a really good running game. They had a pretty consistent like possession style passing game. But now you factor in like Jameson Williams' game-breaking speed. Amon-Ra St. Brown can be a game breaker when he's given space. They still have Sam Laporta. Tim Patrick has been a good receiver for them as well. Like they have a lot of weapons, and this is a really explosive Detroit Lions team. And then this defense, they're one of the top rushing defenses in the league. Then one of the top, like their passing defense was much improved. That was one of their weak points last year, was the secondary. So they've really rounded out and covered up a lot of their holes from last season and gotten a lot better in doing so. And this is one of the top teams in the league. And Dallas, I'm really interested to see what Dallas is able to do against this team. One thing that we need to keep an eye on, that they are pretty banged up on the defensive side of the ball. I know, like, Marshawn Kneeland, it looks like he's going to be out for the season with a torn meniscus. Micah Parsons has been banged up. DeMarcus Lawrence has been banged up. I know Deron Bland is out for a significant amount of time. I'm not sure if he'll be back for this Week 6 matchup. And so, like, they're pretty banged up on that defensive side of the ball. And then you go look at this offense, and this offense, when it's not shooting itself in the foot, I feel like has kind of struggled to get production. You go look, they had a good win against the Browns in Week 1. They put up 33 points. Then after that, they put up 19 points in a loss to the Saints. They put up 25 in a loss to the Ravens after the Ravens completely let them back into that game in the fourth quarter. They put up 20 in a win against the Giants and then 20 in a win against the Steelers. And this offense, like I said, when they're not shooting themselves in the foot, they've really struggled to kind of get that overall production. So I want to see more consistency from the Cowboys. I want this defense to be playing better. I know that's asking a lot for how banged up they are, as I previously stated. Yeah. But I think this is going to be a good matchup, and we'll really get a good gauge of where these teams stand in the NFC.
Yeah. So they're definitely banged up on the defensive side of the ball as well. Micah Parsons didn't play in last night's game, and so Caleb Carson is another guy. It looks like Marshawn Nealon, just by initial reports, and me just quickly looking at this as right now, maybe it's not season ending, but he's most definitely not going to be playing in this upcoming game against the Lions. And that's where I think the Lions as well, coming into this game, coming off a bye, some guys are going to be able to get well rested coming off this just a week to just kind of relax after a quick 4-game stretch to start the season. So the Cowboys, I will say, to give them the benefit of the doubt, they did improve overall in their rushing rankings. They went from 32nd to 31st after last night's performance. And I thought they did actually decently well. It's funny. I think we were recording last night, and I was like, man, Cowboys look like they're struggling to run the ball. And like Rico Dowdle then like kept on, like a reverse commentator jinx. And then he had like broke off a couple of good runs. And so they started to move the ball a little bit better. I think they had over 100 rushing yards against a solid, 109 rushing yards, most rushing yards they got in the season so far against a solid Pittsburgh team. And there's going to be a lot of matchups to watch here, but it's being as balanced as possible for this Dallas team going up against this Detroit Lions team, which is very balanced on both sides of the ball. It is, I think, going to be one of the key matchups to watch is how many times does Dak Prescott have to throw the ball? Because I feel like if this is going to be a 55 attempted game for Dak, which it's possible that it is, and they can absolutely still win that way, but they're going to be very reliant on making sure that they don't make any more mistakes like how they were making last night. On the flip side, though, I will say this Lions secondary is improved from last year, but they're still young. Terry Arnold has given up several penalties as well, a lot of pass interference or holding calls. He's probably going to get the call against CeeDee Lamb, but there's going to be a mixture between him and Carlton Davis as well. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Detroit Lions secondary handles CeeDee Lamb, because the Cowboys still have other good weapons to go along with that. Jake Ferguson, Brandon Cooks, Jalen Tolbert as well. But they're not as – it's kind of one of those, like, we need to eliminate CeeDee Lamb and have somebody else beat us. It's like when Steph Curry's hot on the three, be like, make somebody else shoot the ball. And try and score and beat us, and just letting Steph just be open for three all night.
Yeah.
So, because last year's game, that was the thing. It's kind of looking at stats last year. CeeDee Lamb, 13 catches, 227 yards, and 1 touchdown. It's a pretty good performance by CeeDee Lamb, I would say. He had he had 2/3 of all Dak Prescott's passing yards, and in this game as well too. They only off 21 rushes, only had 61 rushing yards. And that was with Tony Pollard as the back, which maybe you can make an argument they declined significantly from that as well, with Rico Dowdle and Zeke coming back. And I bring that up just because, as I mentioned earlier about the Cowboys being balanced, Detroit Lions have the 3rd best rushing defense in the league statistically as right now. They've really been able to shut down a lot of teams. Seattle, the last time we saw Detroit, Seattle was surprisingly actually able to run the ball a little bit on them in the second half. So maybe it was because they were trying to protect the pass so much, because of how Detroit Lions passing defense is definitely the weaker of the two. And DK Metcalf and company is extremely effective. And Geno Smith throwing the ball can also, which he threw for like 380 yards or something like that. So maybe that opened up some more opportunities to run. But still, though, I think the Detroit Lions running game is going to make it really tough for this Cowboys to run the ball here. So it's going to be a fascinating game going back and forth. We talked a lot about the Cowboys here on the offense side of the ball and what they have to do. I think on the Detroit Lions side of the ball is I think they just need to be that same balanced team that we saw last Monday night. 2 Monday nights ago when they played the Seahawks in Week 4. Of course, Jared Goff had a perfect game, like literally 18 for 18. But super effective running ball, super effective balance even too between their two backs with Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. If they're able to stay balanced like that, keep this injured Dallas Cowboys defense on their toes and really unsure on what they're going to be able to do, I think they can effectively and methodically kind of move the ball down the field as well, because the Cowboys defense did a good job against Justin Fields and the Pittsburgh Steelers offense, but that's nowhere near a comparison to what the Detroit Lions offense can do.
Yeah, well, you're looking at, and Najee Harris is a good back, but this running game isn't as good. This offensive line isn't near as good. That offensive line for Pittsburgh's also banged up, where you're getting an offensive line coming off a bye week with David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs, and you also have Jameson Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta, where Pat Freiermuth is a good weapon, George Pickens is a good weapon. but neither of those guys I think are as good as what the Lions are going to put out on the field. So just to kind of get in predictions here, I'm going with the Lions. I don't know if this game is particularly close. The Cowboys, they had the good start in week 1, but since then, I think they've just been banged up. They played a good game against the Giants. This was a really sloppy game against the Steelers that they just played. And if they do that, it's going to be a 45 to 20 game against
Well,
the Lions.
so I'll push back on that a little bit. It was sloppy in the red zone from the Cowboys. It honestly really should have been a game with all the turnovers that they had, the blocked field
Yeah.
goal, and everything. They were able to move the ball against a pretty solid Steelers defense. I know some people are going to say the Steelers defense got banged up, which they absolutely did. It seemed like a couple of key guys went down during the game, but they were still able to move the ball down the field on the road, which is going to be huge, just for like the overall confidence. But that being said, I am also still going to go with the Detroit Lions as well. I just think it's going to be too much. I think the Cowboys are going to get very one-dimensional. Lions are going to give up a lot of yards, though. Cowboys are going to get their licks in. I don't think it's going to be as much of a blowout as you say it is.
Well, I only said that if the Cowboys come in and they play as sloppy as they did against the Steelers, because the Lions are good enough to take advantage of those turnovers, where the Steelers didn't really do that.
Oh yeah. Because I think that's one factor that I haven't even actually looked at yet. But the Detroit Lions 6th best rushing offense here. So I'm curious actually, where do the Cowboys rank overall? They're 24th in rushing yards allowed, and so that is, to be fair to them, that is with a 274-yard rushing allowed game against the Baltimore Ravens. So maybe a little bit skewed. They balance it out. They only give up 26 yards against the New York Giants the next week. So maybe that actually kind of balanced it out a little bit. So I think the Lions can go and have another dominant rushing performance. And I think it's just going to be a little bit too much for this Dallas Cowboys team, which just isn't as balanced. They're going to have to rely on CeeDee Lamb having another 200-plus yard game. Going to have to rely on some breakdowns in the Detroit Lions secondary. Lions coming off a bye. I know it's going to be at home. Cowboys actually haven't won the game at home, won a home game yet this season, and I don't think it's going to change either.
Yeah, so we're both taking the Lions in this matchup. If you guys have not already, please go ahead and like and subscribe. It is the best way to help out the channel. While you're down there, go ahead and leave a comment on who you think is going to come out ahead. Will it be the Detroit Lions? Will it be the Dallas Cowboys? And that we'll see you guys next time.